Well, hey, y'all, here to do another little knife review here. This time it's going to be on a case knife, and specifically the case saddle horn. This knife, the coloration is going to be burnt brown. Man, I can't talk. Burnt brown and peach seed jig bone. Just a little basic nomenclature for some of you guys that are new to collecting these traditional pocket knives. Peach seed indicates the jigging pattern that's in this bone that obviously kind of resembles the surface of a peach seed. And jigging refers to what happens when these machines cut this bone. Case uses a shin bone of a cow, and they cut it and they run it into these machines that cut these patterns into that bone to kind of give it a nice look. And then after that they dye all the scales. And that's why you have certain, little color variations, because it depends on the natural characteristics of the bone and how it accepts the dye. But they have found that the shin bone of these certain breed of oxen really produce a hard, durable cover, which is what these things are called. They're scales for a knife. And they're also, as you can see, very attractive. Once again, this knife was designed by a fella named Tony Bose, B-O-S-E, not to be confused with Paul Bose, who is a heat treat guy over at Buck Knives. But Tony Bose is a custom knife maker, and he makes some really beautiful knives, and he collaborates quite a bit with case knives. And some of his case knife collaborations can go for $600 up to $1,000 and more. And those are not even his customs. Those are just collaborations with case. But he designed this knife, and this knife certainly wasn't that expensive. When I got it new, got it up in Alpine, Texas at a saddle shop, and it cost me, I think, around $79 or $75, something like that, which is, kind of the going rate. Unfortunately, they have discontinued it. Case Knives does this thing where they release certain patterns, and then they put them into what they call their vault, which is they just, I don't know, it's a weird thing they do. They stop making the pattern. They mostly gear that toward collectors to artificially influence the market and, make a rarity in their patterns. And it drives the price up, especially on the secondary market, and generates some interest. And, Case is kind of looking out for their collectors or whatever. That's fine. But I kind of wish they wouldn't do it, or they would do it with some of their higher-end knives. Because I am not a collector, I am a user, and that's why you can see on these bolsters. And for those of you that are new to traditional knives, bolsters are what they call the silver end, these little caps on the knife. When you hear the term bare head, that just means it doesn't have a little cap like that. They call this one the saddle horn because this swelled up area here resembles the horn on a saddle, which is what the cowboys would use to wrap their ropes around when they caught themselves a cow or whatever with their ropes. It's a beautiful little knife. It has some unique blade shapes that are just specifically for this knife. It is a trapper pattern, sorta, but you can see that blade shape. It has a good belly on it. It's still a clip point, but it has more of a belly than a regular clip point. It's a really nice blade shape. It has half stops. And, with half stops, obviously, it'll kind of catch and stop halfway before it closes. Originally, the idea behind those half stops were it was another safety, since these knives don't lock back. If you were using the knife, it would hopefully keep it from closing on your fingers. I have never... in quite a many a year using pocket knives, I've never even come close to shutting a pocket knife on my fingers. But I guess it can happen. I don't know. I think if you use a knife correctly and you're using the right knife for the job, or you got some common sense, that ain't going to happen to you, but it might. I'm going to give you there's a half stop. I'm going to give you another example of the snap of this blade, how it locks into place. And then I'm going to show you how she closes up here. Now, the term for that, once again, I'm speaking to people that are new to knives. some of you guys, you're old hats at this. But a knife, when you buy a knife, it has a thing called walk and talk. It has fit and finish, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's how well the knife is put together, how well the seams are and everything. Then it has this thing called walk and talk. And basically that's how easily and smoothly does the knife open, and with how much authority does the knife close. And I'll show you there. And it has, this knife would have what we call good walk and talk. Then we're getting into pull weight. Sometimes you'll be looking at a knife online and they'll talk about pull weights, and they usually measure that from 0 to 10. And all that means is how easy the knife is to open. That's the pull weight. And this one would be about a 5.5. A little more than a 5, but not quite a 6. Yeah, about a 5.5. And that's true with both blades. And then we have what would be the spade blade on a normal trapper, but you can see that this has a unique shape as compared to a spade blade on a normal trapper. And I happen to have one right here. It looks like this. That's a true spade blade. And then a clip point, what I was talking about, the clip point, is that's actually a traditional true clip point shape. And this knife has one that's a little bit different. Another thing you'll notice, I'll open up that main blade for you and let you take a look at that. This knife is made of case knives, true sharp, what they call surgical stainless steel. It's their proprietary blend of stainless steel, but it's a good steel. A lot of people give it a bad rap. A lot of old timers like me, I don't know if I'm an old timer, but I'm definitely a guy that's been carrying these all my life. They like this chrome vanadium or high carbon steel because it'll take on this patina or that darkening coloring. Some of the new guys hate that. They think it's really ugly. And I think it's beautiful when you use a knife and it takes on this color. And this knife will never do that because it's made out of stainless steel. And see how it has half stops where it stops halfway? And a traditional trapper doesn't do that. It just opens and closes. So that's a neat feature that they added onto this knife. So it's not quite a traditional trapper, but it's in the trapper pattern in that it's a 2-blade knife, sort of shaped like that. What they would call this, the nomenclature, you've probably heard it before, is a jackknife. And any knife that folds like that, they call it a jackknife. And I don't know the origins of why they do that. I don't know if I told you before, but the model number on this knife is if you can see it here, it is a TB 62110. TB obviously standing for Tony Bose. 62110 knife has a USA stamp there. Case still makes a beautiful product. They've gotten a lot of dings over the years saying they're not as good as they were, but what is built like it was in 1950 or 1930? They still do a great job. Look at that. These things are called transitions. That's basically where the bone goes into the bolster, and the bolster is this little metal covering that they put on the ends here. And you might hear a term called barehead, and that's just basically a knife like this, and it wouldn't have any bolster. It would just be all smooth bone. And that's another style of knife. But originally and traditionally, the bolsters kind of served to protect it because you kind of banged your knife on the sides when you're, using it, moving it around. This knife has pretty good centering. There is no blade rub. You can see there. It's not dead perfect, but let me see if I can zoom in there. See how they don't touch? They're pretty well centered. They did a pretty good job on this knife. And it's a little easier on a pattern like this to get good centering than, like, say, on a Congress or a Stockman knife. Look at the transitions are nice. It's smooth. You have to trust me on this, but it's dead smooth. There's no gaps. There's no ridges. My fingernail don't catch. I'm not going to do it on camera because it's kind of boring and weird, but basically what you can do is open up both blades and shine a flashlight down into the frame and look at it from behind, and you want to see if you see any light emitting from between these springs or whatever. A lot of guys will do that to check for gapping. and it's true, but it's believed, that if you don't have any of that, it's a better built knife. And it is, but, these are handmade products. Sometimes you have really slight flaws. Collectors get really excited about that. I think if you're a knife user, you don't get as excited about things like that. But you should. I mean, you're paying money. You do want to get the best knife that you can. If you're in a knife store and you're shopping for one of these, you really kind of want to look it over. But a lot of us buy knives online, so you really don't have the chance to go through every knife that the store has and things like that. Sometimes there was a guy named Derek Bone that ran a company called Knife Ship Free. He unfortunately passed away, but that guy was a knife guy as well as a knife seller, and he would go through each and every knife to find you one if you asked him, and didn't charge you any more for it. And because he was a true knife guy, and some places will still do that. But if you're running a business and you're selling high volume of knives, probably not. And those guys, those smaller knife stores, they are going to charge you a little bit more, but that's what you get. You're paying for the service. Like I said, I bought this one in a little saddle shop in Alpine, Texas, and I got to examine it. I don't have it here in front of me, but they also built me a nice little knife sheath while I was up there for this knife. And I loved this knife when I saw it. I was what, I always say that, like I get a new knife and I'm like, I'm just going to carry this one, or for a year, I don't know, whatever. Another excuse for us to buy another knife. I did carry it around for a couple months, and then I threw something else in my pocket. And we got so many knives. If you're like me, you accumulate. I'm not a collector, but I accumulate a great deal of these beautiful little cool knives, and it's just hard to be loyal to any one knife. You carry one for a while, and then you carry something else, and then you carry something else depending on your mood. I'll carry some modern knives sometimes. I get in the mood for that. And then I thought, well, why carry, I don't like a lot of redundancy, so I was carrying a traditional knife, and then I'd carry a modern knife with it. And then I thought it was silly. Why would you carry, two knives? But then I see some of these guys, they'll have what they call an EDC pack, and they'll have screwdrivers and a multi-tool and like several flashlights and other knives and all this stuff. And it's just ridiculous, I try to be sort of minimalist, but, it's a hobby. And they are tools. They are one of our oldest tools, knives are, but it also is a hobby. And if you want to carry 10 knives on you, there ain't nobody in the world that says you can't. Why not? I wouldn't get on an airplane with them, but other than that, I would say though that if you're a new into the tradition, let's get one. You should get one to kind of harken back to the lifestyle that your grandpa lived. That maybe your dad, my grandpa all carried these kind of knives. It's just something classy when you take a knife out of your pocket to cut a sandwich in half or cut your apple up, and you're sitting, at work. I'm a nurse, and I'll be in the break room, and I'll whip out this knife and cut it. Nobody freaks out. They're like, "Oh, that's cool," and a lot of people will ask to see it because a lot of people don't carry knives like this anymore. Which is a shame, and or somebody will ask, "Hey, can I borrow that?" They got an apple or an orange or something they want to cut up, and then they get to looking at it. I had a couple people like that, and then I had a doctor and another nurse. They borrowed my knife to cut up their apple, and they got to looking at it. Next thing you know, they each had one. Next time I saw them, they had bought themselves a couple nice knives. It's a good hobby. I've met a lot of really good people. Everybody that's subscribed to this channel, I really appreciate y'all because I'm not trying to be a superstar on YouTube or anything, but when we get a bunch of people on here, I really appreciate it because it's nice to know there's that many people that really love and appreciate knives. And I've said it before, but it's like the way I look at it, it's like we're all sitting around a campfire. and you know, a friend or a new friend pulls up and, hey, what are you carrying today? And they reach in their pocket and they pull out some cool knife, and y'all sit around talking about pocket knives. And in a world where we're arguing about silly things, and if a guy is really a girl or you know, whatever, you know, we're fighting with each other about every other damn thing. It's nice that there's something that kind of unites us all in these little tools. And basically these little tools have been responsible for our survival back when the earliest man was making knives out of sharpened rocks, you know. They're useful as they are beautiful, and there's a lot of history and tradition behind them. And I really appreciate y'all stopping by. I really mean it. And if you like my channel, I really appreciate you subscribing. I've gotten thousands of views on some videos, but not a lot of subscribers, and then the subscriber count will jump up. I don't know how all that works, but like I said, if you like what I'm doing, I appreciate you subscribing, giving it a like, just so I can grow the channel, maybe get some more knives to share with you all. Maybe, hopefully, if you're new, talk you into the knife hobby. If you got any questions or you're looking at a knife and there's any way I can help, leave it in a comment. And I'm sure if I can't, there's a lot of cool guys on here that can, and maybe help you find what you're looking for. But that's been my little mini review on the Tony Bose saddle horn knife by Case. Give you another look around it before we go. Kind of turn it around. Just a unique, interesting pattern. Really, I think it's a beautiful knife. And every time you take something like this out of the case or out of the pocket, you really, at least for me, it just gives you a nice little warm feeling. You know, you have all kinds of stuff going on in the day, but it'll really kind of lift you up there a little bit. Anyway, I really appreciate y'all stopping by, and we will catch y'all down the road.